Who's the person who cheered physics? Excellent. When we look up into the night sky, into a starry night sky, we can see 1 billion points of brightness. 1 billion stars emitting energy in all directions, and we're lucky enough that some of that energy comes towards us on Earth. It travels across the vastness of space, through our atmosphere, down to us on Earth as the viewer. It hits the surface of our lens on our eye, refracts through it onto our retina, and for the first time in millions and millions of years, it transforms into a new kind of energy. It transforms from light energy into electrical energy. And that electrical energy is then interpreted by your brain as vision, as what you see, and in this case and context, the stars. You have to realize how long it took to get here. How long was that journey? And in the end, it ended up in you. It's an honor. Unless, of course, you're Demi. Demi is an amazing individual, a wonderful young lady. Demi is a Year 8 student at the school I work at. And Demi has a real barrier to her learning because she's entirely blind. She was born visually impaired, and at the age of 7, doctors discovered benign tumours behind her good eye. And they had to remove the tumours, and unfortunately, they also had to remove the eye. And a year later, and I've got to get this right, they discovered a retinoblastoma, a cancer of the optic nerve in her other eye, and they removed that too. So by the age of 8, Demi can't see anything. But despite this, she's a smiler. She's a smiler. Amazing. About a year ago, we had a super learning day at our school. And what happens in a super learning day is effectively teachers can kind of go off-piste. And we can kind of teach things that we're actually interested in. And this super learning day, because of the way the curriculum changed, I won't mention the awarding body, but they removed space for some bizarre reason. And that's one of the most exciting things to teach. Year 8, space, out there. So we decided that our department would teach everything to do with space. And I decided to teach astronomical spectroscopy. I said it, yes, correctly, okay? Which is basically the study of light, or particularly starlight. Now, I had the lesson pretty much sorted within 5 minutes. It goes something like this. All the kids come in, you get them to make some tactile crafty things. They make little boxes, they stick a DVD or a CD inside it, and that's a spectroscope. And they go around the room, and there's different bulbs, a low-energy light bulb, a neon bulb, a tungsten bulb. And they look through the spectroscope, and inside the spectroscope, they can see different patterns of light, and they can infer what light comes from, what particular type of pattern comes from what particular type of light. Now that's great, until I found out that I had Demi. Because it doesn't work with Demi, because she can't see. So I had to throw the whole thing out of the window. The question is this: how can you convey a starry night to a blind person? You have to use creativity. You have to think about how you could do that. What you're about to hear is a starry night played as an audio file. The picture behind me, behind the text, is actually the file that it comes from. It's generated, and what you'll hear is you'll hear different beeps and boops noises. Now, the volume of the beeps and boops is dependent upon the magnitude or the brightness of the star, and the pitch or the tone is dependent upon the color within that star, blue, white, red. So I think we should play it now. Okay. Oh. I forgot the bit at the end. Because it kind of builds up in the middle where the bright bit is, and it builds up again. That little one at the top right corner, that one there, that goes whoop at the end. Now what happened there, a vertical bar played across the screen, and it played it. Now this picture I had to alter. If I tried to play this picture now, there is so much information in it that it just comes across as static. Too much information. But it gives you an idea of how much information there is in the picture. And obviously Demi would never be able to see that picture. So, what I did was this. I thought, I need to be able to communicate astronomical spectroscopy to Demi. Here is a spectrum of colour, a rainbow of colour, going from red through to blue, from low frequency, low energy, to high frequency, high energy. We can see these if we look through a prism. People will recognise this picture as the front cover or the inspiration behind the 1973 album, which I've got in my house, of Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. We can do the same thing with starlight, but instead of using a prism, we use a thing called a diffraction grating. Now, a diffraction grating does the same thing. A prism splits the light into colours maybe this big, but a diffraction grating splits it into a much wider area. And it allows us to see something quite interesting, phenomena called Fraunhofer lines. Now, Fraunhofer lines are effectively dark lines within the spectrum of light that never got away from that star. It never escaped. It got caught up in the chemistry of that star. So what happens, you can use these fingerprints or barcodes to determine what star it came from. Every star is unique. But more importantly, every element, every chemical has a unique fingerprint. And this is where I started. So what I'm going to show you now is the element of hydrogen. Here's hydrogen. All I've done is taken out the parts where the dark lines were, and this element of hydrogen is what we call a spectrograph. There's some more. Here's helium. It's very similar, and it makes sense because in the periodic table, hydrogen and helium are quite close together. That makes sense. It's a visual thing now. Next one. Mercury. Very different. And again, neon. And then finally, sodium. Okay, so now you can understand the problem I faced. How do you communicate the nuances of this to a blind child? And this is what I did. Here's the first clue, a spectrograph of hydrogen. And the reveal is the next slide, a piano keyboard. What you do is you play the piano and you line up, effectively, each Fraunhofer line with each key on 31 notes, 2 and a bit octaves, 31 tones, and you can play the element as a musical chord with all the nuances, with all the beat frequencies, with all the sonic interactions and timbre that come with that. A person can then identify it just by audio alone. I'd included Demi. I'd leveled the playing field. Everyone had to learn it the same way. So what I'm going to do now, or the lovely people at the back are going to do, is you're now going to listen to the sound of hydrogen. Bit spooky. Okay. Before we go to helium and play helium, remember they're close together. Helium, please. Still quite low, but it makes sense. They've got a similar timbre to them. Now something totally different. Mercury, thank you. And neon. That one was easier. And then finally, sodium. And they love that one, because that was like the aliens coming down to Earth. Like this. Okay. The subtext to my talk was to design and deliver creative content to include, engage, and inspire. And it did. I had the whole class eaten out of my hand. They were lapping it up. They thoroughly enjoyed themselves. It was amazing. Creativity enables individuals to leap over barriers in their personal learning journeys. And creativity is, I would argue, always is the most important tool in a teacher or anybody's toolkit. You can smash through doors to learning. You can smash through doors and enable learning to happen against traditional ways of learning. This purely visual science of spectroscopy is then opened up to someone who couldn't see it. Demi learn that light from stars contains secret codes that hint at the chemistry at that star millions and millions and millions of miles away. Demi now knows this. Demi experienced it firsthand, and Demi wants more. Thank you.